GM, everyone. All right, hang on one sec. There we go. Let me drop this. Shout out to Hardcore for getting this together. We'll have a fair bit to talk about today. So, uh, okay. Miro is coming your way, sir. There you go. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hardcore, man. I was surprised with those jams that you dropped. I think it was on Friday. We had an epic Halloween event hosted by Zombie Shepherd during the music hour, and yeah, really good stuff. It's always incredible to see all the different skill sets from Gotcha Gang. Just when you think you've known someone well enough, they bust out some new talent or skill set that we're not aware of. So that was really cool. So we do have some Forge discussion today. I appreciate Dr. Wagney taking his time. Got Mikey J in the room. I think they do have some material to present. Some other things on our agenda here for today. I have the Notion Bounty Board set up, so I'll be going through the Notion Bounty Board and how to submit the claim form for bounties that are, that interest you. There's a couple bounties on there already that I have put up, small ones, but we can discuss those. We have, I wanted to get some more input on the guided form discussion, what you guys think about that. And of course, we've been working on the DAO mission and vision, trying to compile a series of questions that would be really helpful in forming that. And so we just want to run through those questions and put the survey together so we can get that out over this week. So that's some of this stuff. And then we may, depending on how things go, we may actually even touch on the channeling discussion. I know Coder Dan just put up a just recent post on his economic plan. So we don't want to get too deep into the weeds on it, but I think it's worth bringing some awareness to the topic. So that's kind of where we're at today. I think that's going to take up the probably most of our time today. And if you have something relevant to speak on, because I don't have Coder Dan up here today, if you have something relevant to speak on, related to what we're talking about at that specific time, I might let you up. So that'll be good. And so let's get on with it. Let me just go back to the DAO meetings chat here. Okay, so first we'll run through our regular proposals here. We have some core props ready for implementation. We have this one: add DAO liquidity to Ghost Alchemica pairs. And so I'm not really sure where we're at with this, but the intention is we're going to be doing it. So I think this is something that has to be done on the Pixelcraft end. I could be wrong, but this is something that's already been decided on, so hopefully we get that soon. The Agate 44 mint mint and transfer 50 DAO parcels and 4 million FUD equivalent. Dr. Wagme, there may be a holdup as they'd like a DAO multisig to manage and own liquidity. Okay. So that's something we might have to get set up, I'm assuming. Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's get you on stage. GM.
Morning, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Kind of a solo day today, but that's all right. We used to do a lot of gotchi spaces like this, so
Right?
it's not anything too different than the old times.
Yeah. Well, I'll do my best to be efficient today. As far as the liquidity stuff goes, Dan and especially Jesse for a while have been trying to get the DAO to like have a good multi-sig that can manage like big amounts. And that would include liquidity. I think there's some legal concerns for them about like adding liquidity and like how taxes works. And I think they want to offload as much of that as they can onto the DAO. This is why we had that extended DAO multi-sig thing like months and months ago. But then like that you had to dox, and then people that were elected weren't willing to dox. So one of our projects is going to be to get essentially a new big multi-sig of people that are willing to dox that would be able to manage these like things like this, where we need to add liquidity, or when we have like bigger amounts that need to be managed by the DAO. So it's quite a bit of work, and we'll probably need like a new election for it. But be on the lookout for that, and we might not get liquidity added until we establish that multi-sig.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. So there is a process that has to happen here before this is actually implemented. That's good to know. So we'll leave it at that for now, and kind of follow up on. I think we should follow up on this once we do have this. Once we do start discussing getting a established multi-sig with docs signers, and then this will come after. So all right. So we'll move on to Agate 44, mint and transfer 50 DAO parcels, 4 million FUD equivalent of Alchemica to the DTF for contributor compensation. And I think we were talking about this last week. Pixelcraft would have to mint these parcels and then send them everything over, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Kind of the two projects we're working on with those is like if people, uh, complete a bounty or something for the protocol, we could use those as compensation. And then I'm also working on like a big project, kind of like a Aavegotchi Hall of Fame, where we can recognize a lot of our historical contributors with a DAO parcel. And I'm pairing with Bowtie Nerd on that to help with art. But if you're interested at all in helping out with uh, this project to acknowledge some of our biggest contributors, to keep them around and help people feel valued during this kind of tough bear market, I'd really appreciate feedback on how we can do that in the most equitable way.
Yeah, I think you made a good point a while ago when we were talking about this, integrating actually a fake gotchi commission, a series of fake gotchi cards. Something that we used to have. My previous job was challenge coins, and so you would have these kind of tokens that people would give to each other, and it was kind of a way to recognize, like you say, that you're a kind of hardworking member. And this is kind of cooler than a challenge coin because you can actually display it on your parcel and show everyone that you have it. So something like that was really, when you mentioned that kind of brought that back, and I think that would be one cool way. And then actually having some sort of a DAO parcel, or like you have some FUD in the mix there, so having some sort of tiered reward system based on your contributions would be, um, I think something like that, yeah, definitely can contribute to that. So that, go ahead. I see you unmuted there.
Uh, as far as those being minted and transferred over, I think we're a little ways from that. I need to specify kind of like which ones I'm hoping for, and I'm going to be asking for like some roadside humbles. I think that would be a cool way to have like a Hall of Fame, uh, and I'll let the community know which ones the DTF is requesting once I have that for everybody.
Yeah, sounds good. So we'll just keep tabs on that one for now. I think both of these props are kind of not really on the back burner, but they're being worked on slowly. We'll get to a point where we can just execute on it. But we'll move on to the things ready for core prop now here. Airdrop Gotchi Respec Potion. That one passed. That'll be going to core prop. I do have a small bounty to incentivize. We can talk about it later, just to incentivize if someone wants to get a working group together for this and get a funding proposal together. We can review it and actually get a DAO led group, making creating this respect potion. And so that was one of the things there, one of the bounties. But I'll talk about the bounties and stuff at the end there. But that'll probably be moving to core prop here. In the meantime, the DAO, this will be a DAO led initiative. I think it's the beginning of Pixelcraft maybe handing over some of these tasks to us to prove ourselves as a DAO. I think this is a reasonable one for Aavegotchi DAO to, do most of the development and have Pixelcraft assist and review as needed, and then, kind of take the load off Pixelcraft for some of these things that, we have really talented DAO DAO contributors that could get these things done. So that one will go to core prop. The bonding curve emergency plan, that one was voted on and passed. 15 million, met quorum of 15 million. I was recently following the outcome of what happened with the vote on Make or Die, and I think they voted to actually integrate Circle, like they've acknowledged Circle as part of um, their basket. I don't think that scenario we were discussing is going to happen, but it's good that we have an emergency plan in place in case anything does go awry that we can act quickly on. So that will go to core prop. Preventing owners from channeling gotchis listed for lending. That one seemed obvious to me. 9.2 million over 9 million ghost. That's something Pixelcraft will have to implement. So I'm not really sure where they're at with their like in their dev cycle right now, what they're working on. But based on that, hopefully it gets implemented sooner or later. You know, it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to take a really long time. They're just finishing up the art release, the NFT displays. I imagine there's going to be probably a gap probably where we can get some of these things executed. But I imagine they're probably working on a lot of optimizations around the recent release. New wearable sets. This was a cool idea led by, I believe, Phantasma, who got some really great ideas together for some unique wearable sets. And so this is not introducing any new wearables into the economy. This is simply taking the current wearables we have and making some really great combinations out of them. And so that one's passed. And I think that's a really easy lift from talking to Coder Dan. That's a light lift. And that should be easily implemented just by adding the nomenclature, you know, the names for all these different sets to the UI. So that takes care of everything ready for core prop. And now
If I might interrupt a little bit.
yeah, go ahead.
As some of you guys might know, Moon has stepped down from Pixelcraft from his role, and he was the one currently pushing things over to core prop. So when Dan gets on later, maybe we should talk about kind of who's responsible for that. Is this an opportunity to like have the DAO maybe push things to core prop, or who's going to help things move forward during this transition period? So just kind of put that on our to-do list docket.
Did not know that. I'll note that down. Yeah, we should definitely get. I think this is a great opportunity for the DAO to take over that responsibility. We have two SIG props here that are currently open. Let's see, how many days do we have on these? You have 5 days left on the Rarity Farming Season 5, and you have 4 days left on Adjust Alter Spillover Rates. I don't know if these on here. Yes. So these, the Rarity Farming Season 5, Cookie Thief has written a thread in the DAO forum. You can check that out. And he goes through where the funding could possibly come from, where it's come from in the past. It's a nice summary of where we're at right now and possible suggestions for funding this, I believe through player rewards. But there's way more details in the actual post, so definitely check that out. The Forge, maybe Dr. Wagme can comment on this one. The Forge request for funding and development. This one I think has passed, hasn't it? It's closed.
Yes,
It passed, yeah. So I'm glad to hear that that this Forge discussion's moving forward, and that you guys you have secured the funding, and you have project landmarks already set. So this is really exciting that this thing is starting to really gain some momentum, and it's moving all in the right direction. So glad to see that one passed.
It was just the SIG prop, so we haven't secured funding from a core prop perspective, but it passed with high enough that we're kind of operating under the assumption that we'll get funded. And there'll be a series of SIG props coming to kind of guide specifics of the Forge and the big decisions that we need to make that should be community decisions and not just ones from the Forge team. So expect those to come out in the next couple of days. And when we talk about the Forge, we'll talk about those specific decisions here in a minute.
Yeah, sounds good. Course posted something up here. I'm gonna click on it. See what's up with this. Okay. Oh, it's another. It's a separate board. That's cool. It's a board within a board. Okay.
It's
Oh,
okay. I just want
yeah.
a brief aside on, a couple of these like recent SIG props. I don't think like really allowed for a ton of discussion or at least even discussion over our DAO meeting. And I think as a community, we should try to push for each other too. Like if you have an idea, something you want to do, come present it and talk about it at the DAO meeting. Uh, I think like how we time out Rarity Farm Season 5 is important as we're thinking about how can this be sustainable? How can we fund it? What are upcoming things in the Gotchiverse? What impact does rarity farming have on our economy as far as Ghost goes, the wearables market? And should be a pretty serious discussion, not one that is like impulsively put forward without any discussion around it. So whether it's that or big economic changes, I just really want to encourage the community to allow good discussion time, come and talk about your proposal at the DAO meetings and try to get things as fine-tuned and data-driven as possible. Because it feels a little bit like that maybe wasn't the case for the last two SIG props.
The rarity farming one definitely caught me off guard. That's definitely something we discussed for the last one. You know, we had a decent amount of discussion in the DAO meetings, and so I kind of echo that. I think it should almost be for anything large that involves a large amount of capital expenditure or distribution of funds should definitely be at least discussed at one DAO meeting as a first pass, so we get the awareness out. I think another thing to mention is when we do have those discussions at a DAO meeting, it gets live streamed, and we have people who may not be able to come to these for one reason or another, and so that's one way we have to disperse information without leaving people behind, is having it recorded through live streams and having them able to listen to it. So I'd imagine, a person like that would be caught off guard if they come here. This is their source of information for what's going on in the DAO, and we don't talk about rarity farming, and then it ends up passing. It could definitely catch people off guard.
Yeah, especially I think asynchronous communication really puts us at risk for infighting and lack of like good communication, right? Because you're just like a keyboard warrior talking about, what you feel. But if we come together, we have a discussion, I think we can really recognize a lot of us are on the same page, just trying to like move forward, have a healthy economy and time things out. So I think it'll help from a community building perspective just as much as it will from an operational perspective and moving propositions through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. I'm in agreement with that. Before we get into any of the altar stuff, I think I'd like to give you the floor and get an update on the Forge. If you have any materials to present, or if you just want to give a up to date summary of where you guys are at right now with the Forge team. And I'm actually kind of curious as to who's been expressing interest in the Forge. Who are some prospective team members, or whether you're thinking there's a process for vetting people to be on the Forge team. So I'd personally like to know more about that, but just an update would be great as well.
Great. Mikey, if you don't mind putting your hand up and coming up on stage, I always appreciate your input. And then also posting a link to our light paper for the Forge would be great. So this was kind of our first deliverable as a Forge team, was to produce a light paper, a project overview for where we're at with things, the mechanics that we're proposing. And so we will put that up for you guys to look at. Really I guess I'll talk about the team first and then we'll go into some of the details. I'm leading the project as a whole. Mikey is heading the economics aspect of it. So what are the real economic financial implications of the decisions we're making? How can we have a good data-driven process for the decisions that we make along the way. Diddly Poo is going to be doing, I guess he's renamed as Diddly, but is going to be doing the smart contract work. And then we will be able to use some of our budget for an audit for that, just to make sure things look okay. And I'm hoping the Pixelcraft team was also interested in giving a stamp of approval too, since they'll be the ones actually implementing it. And then the bigger update I have is that I think Notorious BTC is going to be heading art. And we are meeting with Pixelcraft on Tuesday to talk about the art. They're pretty protective over art in the Gotchiverse, but goal is for us to do all the schematics, all 252 of them, the frames, all 36 of those, and kind of fun things for the community. I hope you guys think this is a good idea, is I would like a community contest for Essence and Alloy to get community input, come together, have a bunch of cool ideas, and then have some ghosts set aside from our budget as a reward for the most popular Essence and Alloy art that will be implemented. So if you guys are interested in that, start brainstorming what cool Alloy and Essence look like, and we will kind of post up bounties or at least bigger announcements that'll be a competition here soon. Yeah, so those are kind of the team leads. There's a ton of people that are involved, right? From like many aspects. Like we have, like Al is doing some work like with Mikey helping from the economic side, and Maury is interested in helping out from the smart contract side if we need a second set of eyes. Uh, like uh, Hardcore and you, Hefe, and like so many people are helping to get the word out with what this is, and there'll be a lot of educational work to do. So big project, but having those team leads was an important first step. So Diddly, Notorious, Mikey, and me will be leading different aspects of the project.
That's awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate you kind of going through who's going to be leading it. All very OG members of Aavegotchi that have, have already had big contributions to Aavegotchi. So I'm excited to see what y'all can do as a team together because, I don't think we've ever seen something like that where, each of you large contributors in your own right, but then to come everyone, have everyone come together, I think is going to be a really good synergy. So.
And that's the point of a DAO, right? Is how can we leverage our talent that exists in the DAO in a way to be productive and add value? So I'm really hopeful as well. It's such an awesome team. This community is amazing, and we are still aiming for a December release for the Forge. So if it's okay, I kind of want to talk about a couple of the key decisions we have to make. There'll be SIG props coming out this week, so it's helpful to understand some context of what these props are talking about. And I want to get feedback from the community, so please type in chat your thoughts here. But by far the biggest choice we need to make is the distribution ratio of Alloy. And a quick overview real fast. So we're essentially tokenizing the entire wearables market with Alloy, and we'll just be using a single alloy for this, not multiple alloys as was initially proposed in like the DAO forum. But the idea is you can turn your wearable into alloy and then that alloy back into a wearable if you have the schematic in the frame for it. The frames serve as the constraint for different rarity and slots, and then the schematics just allow the different variation and stat combinations. But we had kind of talked about alloy just being to help get different traits, but it's helpful for everyone to conceptualize alloy is tokenization of the entire wearables market. And with that comes a really big decision of how much alloy we give each rarity level. And this is a really tough decision because there's multiple different ratios to use, and wearables have been distributed in multiple different ways, from the mall to raffles and then GBM. And these all essentially use like different ratios of their scarcity for it. And if we are tokenizing the wearables market, that means we have to decide how much a common is worth compared to a godlike to give them that respective alloy. So one of the data points I've used is like, well, how much for like each of our wearables, like which ones were distributed in which way. And so about 60% of our wearables were distributed over the raffle mechanism. And I think that's why it probably makes the most sense to use the friends ratio for distribution of alloy, as that is how most of them were distributed. But an example of where this could fall short is like commons to uncommons as an example, right? So the mall ratio was like 1 to 2 there. Here, let me bring up my distribution ratios. Sorry. Yeah, so for raffle tickets, right, it costs 250 friends for an uncommon, but 50 friends for a common. So it costs 5 times as much to get the uncommon. So there's a 5-to-1 ratio there. But the market is clearly not valuing commons and uncommons at a 5-to-1 ratio, right? It's like 14 ghosts is the floor for uncommons and 10 ghosts or 9 ghosts is the floor for commons. So if we make the decision to use the friends ratio, that means uncommons are going to get 5 times as much alloy, and there's going to be a big ARB opportunity for uncommons because people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to get 5 times as much alloy if I just buy all the uncommon floor. And so we need to decide, do we do something different? Do we use one of the other ratios, or is this not that big of a deal? And is it like a nod to uncommons, which have been like sort of shit on from the perspective that they weren't a great investment? And we need to make this decision because it's going to impact like how many wearables you can make out of it if you're getting double the amount of alloy compared to a common, or 5 times the amount of alloy with a common with an uncommon. So we're going to put some data forward in a SIGPROP that's going to say like what these different ratios are, kind of what those impacts would be. And I think that my recommendation is still going to be to use the friends ratio, but just know that that's what that's about as we're trying to decide when we tokenize the whole market, what things are worth compared to each other.
I have
And
just one quick thing to add on to that. So I was actually thinking about this the past few days. I just hadn't really got a chance to put it out there in written form yet. But I think one of the ways we could think about it is the more let's assume hypothetically that all wearables cost the same amount of alloy, regardless of the rarity. Like just hypothetically. What I think would likely happen, and I'm not saying that's what I think we should do, but what I think would likely happen is the closer the spread between the value and the alloy value is, that I think what we're likely to see is more value accrue to the schematics and frames for those wearables. So I think it's also a question of how much do we want value to accrue to alloys versus frames in particular, because the advantage of more value accruing to alloys is that it makes the market more liquid because alloys are easier to divide up and trade around. So I'll try and kind of expand on that a little bit in the next day or two in a written form, but that's another way we could think about it as well, is like depending upon the spread between the different rarities and how that relates to the current market value. It's also likely that the market would take that leftover value and just attribute it to the schematic. So yeah, I'll try and expand on that in the coming days, but just wanted to throw that out there as well.
that's a perfect point. And I'm expecting that a lot of the value goes to both the schematic and the frame. But one of the goals of this proposal is to have kind of lots of schematics eventually. They're going to be harder to come by initially. We'll need to work hard with Pixelcraft to introduce some schematics into the market in order for forging to happen and people to be motivated to do that. But I think we're going to have the constraint of frames. And so if godlike holders, they could feel like slighted a little bit, right? If you only get 1,000 times as much alloy instead of 2,000, which was the ratio from the mall. But I want to encourage everyone that this delta, or like the margin, is going to be captured by the frames, and we're going to be pretty hawkish with distribution of frames. So your value with the wearables you have is going to be retained through that framework, which is going to be part of what we publish and put forward to the DAO as part of this entire Forge project.
I got a question about the frame. So is the frame going to kind of keep the current ratios of the wearable slots somewhat relatively, similar to each other as where they're at right now? For example, specific mythical wearables, the eye wearables specifically, are sought after because there's not that many of them. And so would that kind of imply that once the frames are introduced, that something similar would happen where you wouldn't have that many mythical eye frames, for example, like just to respect the current value of those wearables, or am I thinking about this differently?
Yep, that's a good question. So one of the other SIG props we're going to see is, do we want to codify some slots being more rare than others? And so the face, eye, and pet slot are more rare. And so do we want those to be more rare? And then how much more rare do we want them to be? And the frames help us do that in a very granular way where we can choose each individual one, each individual slot, and then determine how much we want for each of those. And there'll be a SIG prop saying like, yes, we want those to be more rare. In fact, we want them to be a third as common or whatever number that we choose. And then we can say, if this is how like much less common we want them to be, this is how many frames we need to get there. So a good example is for common pets, we only have 1,000. Even if we want there to be a 3-to-1 ratio of common slots to rare slots, we still need a ton of pets. And so that gives us a lot of room to auction off frames to meet that goal that would be set by the framework. And the first step, though, is establishing, yes, we want these to be more rare than the other slots. And then how rare is the second part. There's an interesting thought here is that if we want there to be equal amount of eyes, pets, and face items, like could we just have a special frame and then you could have a standard frame for your other slots? So the standard frame would be for your head item, your body item, and your hand item. And then you could have just a special frame for the rare slots. And that could help us if we wanted to have equal amounts of those special slots and could maybe abstract away a little complexity. And that would leave us with only 12 frames instead of the 36 in the current proposal. But one of the big problems with this is for godlikes especially, there's only 5 face items, right? And there's quite a few pets and eye items. And so we would almost surely see is people, smelting down your eye or pet godlike and then turning it into a face godlike. And we'll see decrease in value. So one of the ways we could combat that is to have keep your godlikes granular, where you have each of the individual slots has a frame, but then for all of the other ones, from common through mythical, you could have a special and standard frame, and that would at least get rid of how many total frames we have. I know this is complicated, but basically we just need to choose like how can we make this as simple as possible, and do we want there to be equal amounts of the rare slot items, or do we want to have granular control over those items? I'm curious from feedback from the community on what you guys think about those two paths.
Specifically regarding frames, I think there was a key point you actually made with schematics. Is one of the key features of schematics is it's going to allow, schematics will allow a player to move between different trait combinations, for that specific rarity of schematic a lot more easily. And so that might kind of take off some of the pressure to loosen the constraints on frames when you can, take this rare wearable item and make up for the points somewhere else on a different slot, if that makes sense. So, like, I think keeping the constraints. Okay, yeah. Am I thinking of this?
I wasn't following you there.
Yeah, I think I'm just thinking of two different things. I'm thinking of the schematics allowing a player to move between different items, to actually smelt down X item, use a different schematic with maybe more favorable trait combinations, and to optimize that way, rather than looking at a different slot completely to actually optimize their Aavegotchi.
Well, either way, I think we have an idea for what we want to do. We're going to keep our constraints around our rare slots to preserve that value. And I don't think it matters too much which way we go as long as we're mindful of protecting like some of those like most valuable godlike items. And I think regardless of our path forward, we need to like probably keep it granular and always have a godlike face frame instead of just like a godlike special frame where you would essentially be able to go between eyes and face items like I had mentioned there. So that's one of the other ones that's coming as far as sig props for our community to decide on. And like with these, we'll also like have a recommendation. Like this is the data that we had in our recommendation forward. All right. Sorry for the toddler in the background.
Can't hear him. Your
questions?
noise cancellation
Oh.
is really good.
Good. Mikey, anything else you wanted to bring up?
No, I think that's it. I missed what you had said at the beginning. Are we ready to send out the light paper? How are we doing that?
Yeah, would you please just put it
Yeah.
here so people can sort
Yeah.
through it and digest it. There's a lot in there. And then some of the specific numbers will be coming out later. And really, guys, I promise it's less complicated in practice for our users than it will be in design. And hopefully being really thoughtful and abstracting away as much complexity with our design is going to help the users have a good experience with forging. So I'm optimistic we can pull it off and really excited about this. One of the things I hadn't mentioned on one of the DAO calls is how can we use Alchemica here. And I think our really clear path for Alchemica is going to be through schematics. So let's leverage Pixelcraft's artistic ability and ability to sell schematics in the Gotchiverse with like bring back Crafting Wednesdays. These are the schematics that are available this week. Use your Alchemica, make your schematic. That should serve as a really strong sync. We're okay with diluting schematics, right? Because it's not diluting the overall wearable supply. And I'm working with a couple of members of Wearables Task Force and people that have done a lot of work on which exact slots and stats we need to say Pixelcraft, like these are the ones we want. Don't fuck up and like give us another like mythical signal headset item. Like please provide just these ones, and you can sell those in Alchemica to help support the overall economy. And I think that's going to be a good way for us to leverage strengths there. Really recognize the strength of Pixelcraft and to support the overall like market, because the DAO is still quite a ways away from having an ability to like produce schematics, curate them. But that'll be a future goal for us, right? Is how can we get community created content with the schematics? But for now, we'll use Pixelcraft.
Yeah, I love the flexibility here in this whole Forge system, allowing more community development coming in later as this grows, right? And having this ability to have creative control as a DAO at some point it's gonna be interesting. We might even see something similar to what happens with fake gotchis, and having outside interest from pixel artists coming in to design really cool things. I mean, I'm just excited overall about the Forge. I think it's something that it seems like a natural evolution of an MMORPG to be able to have composability with your items. Like we've seen that, like any good MMORPG, you have a lot of composability with your characters, especially items.
Yeah. And this like literally wakes me up at night. I'm so excited about it, which is a problem since I have a 6-day infant and I need my sleep. But one of the cool things as we think about tokenizing different aspects of protocol assets, right? So if we tokenize gotchis with Essence, we are basically giving an enormous amount of composability to our gotchi market. So just like a brief example of what we could do with this is if we had a good relationship with Reddit cryptocurrency and Reddit NFTs, we could say you can bring your Reddit NFT to life in the Gotchiverse with Essence equal to 1 Gotchi. And so you would basically like purchase Essence and you could summon your Reddit NFT into the Gotchiverse. And we basically allowed you to bring whatever NFT you want into the Gotchiverse using 1 Gotchi worth of tokenization. And this is really exciting because we can preserve the value of our gotchis, because like that's access to everything in the game, but allow this interoperability that we hope for in Web3 in a way that we can control, and we can also use Essence for other items, like whether we want those for our decorations. If there's like a little guy roaming around on your land, or the Skeletor perhaps could have called for a little bit of Essence. We can have other ways of creating Essence demand, which is creating Gotchi demand and support of that entire Gotchi market. So we can think of how can we create demand in a way that's not just like dropping Alchemica tokens. And I'm really excited about being able to do that both with our wearables market via Alloy, but our Gotchi market via Essence as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I see people already throwing some other ideas, and it's really got people thinking creatively about this. So hopefully it's not keeping you up too late at night, and hopefully some of the DAO can help you with getting this idea together, because we definitely don't want you up all night when you got a little kid. So but I'm glad to see like all the excitement around this. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to getting into this light paper, and maybe we can have a follow-up discussion on this next week. Do you guys have
Sure.
any other last notes or anything else you'd like to present for regarding the forge or otherwise?
I don't think so. I think people understand that it's not going to be an installation, that there's just going to be a place in the Gotchiverse where you can interact with the smart contract. Uh, and we still have quite a bit of work to do on locking down what we want Essence to look like. Like, are all Gotchis equal? Do you just give them 1,000 Essence, for example, across the board? Or do we take into account kinship and XP? So if you're interested in coming up with different models for how we can give different amounts of Essence to different Gotchis, especially helping us understand what the impact of the overall Essence would be, please let us know. We have money to help investigate and research that. Then secondly, if you're interested in skill progression, there's probably some area for improvement or optimization here beyond what I had laid out with the smithing and cooldown skill progression, which is basically in its current form, like it's the only thing it's going to do is decrease your crafting time. So instead of taking a whole day to craft a common, it can take a little less than 8 hours to craft a common, would be all you get from your skill progression. If you think there should be more that comes with that, or some more nuance to skill progression there, please reach out, come up with some different models for skill progression. Let us know why you like that, and then we can perhaps integrate that into its final form.
Yeah, absolutely. The skill progression was interesting to me, and I think you also have a thread going on nomenclature, right? Are you guys open to different naming suggestions and that sort of thing, or is this something going to be considered at a later time? Once things have been finalized, then you might want to look at the nomenclature. I'm kind of curious to know if the DAO is going to be suggesting different types of names, or the lore behind all this. Like, I feel like that kind of has to tie in with the whole Gotchiverse, right, as well.
Yep. Yeah, I love community feedback on nomenclature. I think maybe for next week we can all of the feedback we've had for different names, we can have some polls set up, and we can do some final community votes, maybe even at the Hangout, to get as many people as possible. Because starting to use the same verbiage and nomenclature is going to help us all understand what this project is and have less confusion. So let's plan for that for next week. If you have ideas for what Essence, Alloy, schematics, or frames should be named otherwise, please reach out. Let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen people get pretty creative with those. I just want to point out a a comment from Diddly Poo. It says at a technical level, sorry, at a technical level, there is a principle we need to address on how this and future DAO projects will be implemented. Should they be integrated into existing Aavegotchi contracts to ensure maximum compatibility, or be entirely standalone contracts that Pixelcraft would then have to perform work to adopt? It's an interesting question, something to think about for sure. We can definitely talk with Coder Dan on it. But yeah, curious to know if you guys do have any other thoughts on that.
Feels a little bit like we're in still like metamorphosis stage at best, or cocoon stage. So doing all the work and then saying, please, you go ahead and implement this into the smart contracts seems like the right call, but I would have to defer to our technical people for that. Also, Diddley should be having kind of like a technical paper coming out soon that outlines like how we're planning to implement these things, and that'll be helpful for those of you interested.
I'm gonna
Looks
get
like
him
his
up
hand
here.
is raised, actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna get him up here. GM,
You guys
GM.
hear me?
Yeah, GM. How are you?
Hey guys. Yeah, just to kind of explain that point a little bit more. It's mostly was just a note. I had chatted with Code Dan a little bit, or started to ask him a few questions on kind of like the ideal way to implement this, so as not to kind of step on any toes within Pixelcraft or any kind of plans that they had within the contract, just like on a pure, very technical level. So it's more than Dr. Wagner, what you just said about just kind of doing the work and kind of letting Pixelcraft push the button. there's even within that there's kind of like something that we need to decide. Just this is why I mentioned that I need to we need to talk to Coder Dan on this, because it kind of it's just a general principle on whether we want to, at least like as a DAO within Aavegotchi, whether we want to kind of, when we're implementing projects that interface with existing Aavegotchi, like not just Aavegotchi contracts, but also even like UI elements that Pixelcraft is built on top of it, like the Bazaar. If we say implement it as a direct kind of like injected into the existing Aavegotchi contract as much as possible, things like Bazaar compatibility would basically come automatically. But from kind of like a separation of concerns perspective, and also again from the same kind of concept of like not kind of stepping on any potential toes with anything that Pixelcraft might be planning on implementing. There are some, like when I was deep diving into the implementation details, there are some kind of modifications either we would have to make, or kind of like new things we would have to introduce into the Aavegotchi contract that might cause some friction for Pixelcraft. So that's why we would definitely need Coder Dan to kind of discuss on this. And yeah, just basically kind of solidify an approach that we that we excuse me that we want to follow going forward. Just so yeah, it's clear from a technical perspective on exactly how to properly design this and what direction we want to go. Was that too much detail?
No. I'm
No.
just thinking about what you said there.
Yeah. Can you give a like what this looks like from like a timeline perspective? It just seems like so much work from non-technical people. Like, is a December timeframe for this, you think, still reasonable from the smart contract perspective and figuring out the technical aspects like you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's reasonable. It's not as crazy as it might seem, especially if we're just utilizing kind of everything that Pixelcraft has built. There's a lot of kind of groundwork basically that Pixelcraft has already done with regards to, for example, introducing new items. So that's kind of like a large chunk of it is having these items ready, and another kind of like the core technical aspect of it would be just creating a kind of like a new contract that handles specifically the logic of um, taking some pieces and giving you a wearable, or taking a wearable and giving you some pieces. So that kind of core logic of it, it's not too crazy. I mean, even though it might seem like it's a lot of work, like if you know what you're doing, then it's not really that much. Like it is a new contract, but it's not like some months long process of building. But questions like with this against this sort of thing, questions like the hardest things to get right are things like ensuring compatibility and making sure that in the future there are no kind of unintentional side effects that have happened with what you've implemented. So yeah, I think once we can get past this kind of decision, I still think that December is definitely reasonable to get this implemented, as long as we can get kind of Dan to opine on this subject pretty soon.
We're expecting most schematics to come from Pixelcraft, right? At least initially. I don't know if that impacts like how we do things at all, but there'll have to be some recipe, right, for like X schematic plus the alloy plus frame equals this. So I guess having things set up so that they can do that pretty easily from their end seems important. And then question for you, would we be able to like have schematics like sold or available ahead of time? Like, are these just like 1155s that would be easy to like add on to those future recipes if the forge isn't debuted and complete? Or do we need to have that done first before we would have like craft your schematic 1155 ahead of time?
That would also depend on the question I brought up.
Right,
Because
that's what I was thinking.
yeah, if they're if they're standalone contracts, then we as the DAO could deploy the ZRC 1155s whenever, and we could deploy them in advance of the entire kind of mechanism being live. But if they are if we are doing this kind of like as a integration into the existing Aavegotchi contracts, then we probably do want to have everything deployed, just to avoid kind of multiple releases and like just like additional overhead headache. Basically, it would probably be more desirable to avoid that than to have like a few weeks head start on deploying some ERCs, basically ERC 1155s.
Awesome. Well, I'm fully delegating that to you to talk with Dan and figure out the best way forward, but keep us posted.
Sure thing.
And then to Phantasma's point, like I love this idea, right, of like how can the community create stuff and having a path where our community knows exactly what specs you need to make a wearable, to like make the schematic for it, to make the entire wearable, what the side views look like, so we can have really high quality content that's easy for Pixelcraft to say, yes, we have everything we need. This will be easy to deploy this wearable. So I think that's kind of medium term vision for this project. But short term, Pixelcraft will do it. Medium to long term, let's do this ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for all this, and I'm gonna dig through that light paper as well, and have some more kind of context, so I can contribute to that discussion as well. I appreciate you guys, coming up here and sharing all this with us today, giving us an update on the Forge. Hearing all the team members involved in this gets me excited as well. Many people that have proven to be, create really cool things for the DAO and have really great ideas. So I think the next couple of weeks should be really exciting. So if we're okay to quickly pivot, I don't want to get into the adjusting alter spillover rates too much. I just wanted to point out the discussion that's happening. I think we can have a really good deep dive into it with Coder Dan once he's back next week. I think he's doing a Reddit discussion today. So for today, I just want to read the blurb here that Hardcore's posted. There's been a lot of debate in the DAO this week around Alchemica inflation. It's clear that our economy cannot handle the amount of tokens being currently issued. Therefore, we've come up with a proposal to increase spillover rate in lower level altars to help reduce the amount of Alchemica being issued and encourage friends to upgrade their altars. We believe this will stabilize the economy until more Alchemica syncs are introduced in the eagerly anticipated combat release. The following table shows daily FUD inflation rate caused by the channeling. There's a whole there's some aggregated info here on the mirror board. The following table shows daily FUD inflation rate caused by channeling broken down by altar level, and you can see the current inflation rates, spillover rates, and our new proposed spillover rate. and the reduction in inflation this will cause. I believe this was the initial proposal. Dan has posted a counter proposal, which is worth looking into. And the details are all on the Miro board. I'm not going to go through them just now because we'll end up having a deeper discussion next week. But I definitely wanted to point out this discussion happening right now and have our friends look at it, and we can have something more informed next week. So I appreciate Hardcore putting that together because it's a really easy document to access. If you don't want to read through everything, I would read through these panels here and at least get some context for what we're talking about. Well, with that being said, I don't want to drag the meeting on too long, but I did want to show the bounty board that I have set up and how you can apply for bounties now that we're going to be issuing, whether it's Forge related bounties. There's different ones you can grab. Let me go to our Miro board here. Here. Okay. Well, you guys that are not looking at my stream may not be able to see it. Let me share the link so you can check it out yourself. So this is the DAO Notion, the DAO Notion board. And so we should pin this somewhere, or I'm thinking we can at least have a channel or something that has this link, because this is something that'll be accessed by, pretty much anybody, or can be accessed by pretty much anybody who wants to claim a bounty. So you would first go here. I have set up the bounty board database. And so here, this is where bounties would get posted. There's different views. So, you can have it in a list view if you want to see everything. But I like the board view because it just shows you what's available and what is in progress. So you would go here, you would see, okay, well, there is a bounty available for Assemble Respec Potion. So you click on it, you look at it, okay. Right here, it'll show you the date the bounty was posted, what sort of skills you might need, talent acquisition, if you're able to actually find talent, maybe some sort of game design or MMORPG design, and community support. This bounty, every bounty will have its own category. So there's 4 right now. There's I know initially I organized the bounties in their separate categories, but now it's just a tag. So you just tag it research and development, it's technical, it's media, or it's Forge related bounty. So all the Forge related bounties will have their own tag as well. Each bounty has a bounty ID. So this is number 2. The bounty reward. So this one's saying you get 25 ghosts just for going out and getting a group together. Essentially, that would be the deliverable. You've assembled a group of people that can do the Respec Potion. The status is something I'll have to manually change, but once you've claimed the bounty, I would just flip it to unavailable in progress. And then this is a dework plug, but we're not going to be using this right now because we haven't officially moved towards dework. But when we're ready for that, we can click set up bounty, and I'll actually set up a bounty to launch in dework, and you can get like a Discord notification with that. So yeah, the task, what we're looking for, your responsibilities for that specific task. Some of these qualifications are very low, like if any, and then the compensation, and then how to apply. So every bounty is also going to show you how to apply. So if this is something you're interested in, for example, you'd say, all right, I like this bounty, I'm down, I'm going to grab this. Bounty ID is number 2. You would go to the main Aavegotchi page, you just go to the bounty claim form. There's a form here. You pick your application date, you put your name down. Preferably, actually, this should be your Discord name, so I have a contact. And then your bounty ID, so you'd put number 2 here. Do you meet the requested skill set? Yeah. What date can you complete the project by? Just an approximate date. And then here, I put the bounty request amount. So it said 25 ghost. But if you think maybe that's a little too low and you want to counter with a different amount, I'm open to, you just put a different amount in there that you're countering to. If we don't have like reasonable interest in the proposal, then I can follow up with you and we can arrange a bounty that's a little bit different than what was proposed. So this will go right into my inbox. We got the bounty system set up, and so that'll make it a little bit easier and kind of abstract away the need to go back and forth on a lot of bounties, and especially for the smaller bounties too. There's some really, like, for example, one of the things we identified with the streamers for the DAO is none of us have like a brand kit where everything's unified across all the different streams and newsletters and all this content that's coming out from the DAO now. Everybody has their own little kind of setup that they put together, but I feel like, actually not I feel, but it was identified that having a unified kind of branding across all our streams and newsletters and everything would be ideal. And so one of the bounties here, for example, is for 75 Ghost, for someone just to put together a brand kit and have it, this would be someone who's like a graphic design or digital artist, put together a brand kit for us, some banners, some thumbnails. So they're little bounties like that. I think anything bigger than, anything that's quite large with a lot of moving parts would probably be more like a funding proposal. But the bounties are going to be relatively small and easy to claim. So you just go to the bounty claim form once again. You grab the insert your application date, name, bounty ID, all that. And the way the bounties will be selected is they'll be selected in, first of all, if you meet the skill set. So if you meet the skill set and you can do the bounty, that's one checkbox. The other thing is your application date. So if you have multiple people applying for the same position who are equally qualified, then we would go by application date. And the third category is not something I've thought of, but it's probably not a scenario that would happen, is where you have multiple people that applied on the same day with the same skill set. But that could be, we could, I'm open to thoughts around that. Yeah. So that's the bounty system there. Anything larger, you probably want to go to project funding and grants and fill out I basically taken the old DTF funding request form. I found it was quite it was good for the purpose it was trying to fulfill. So it's a form now, and you can, if you have any larger funding requests or more complex funding requests, still put them through here. So that's one thing. And then another feature I'm working on here on adding is bounty suggestions. And so if y'all have any bounty suggestions, specific bounties that you think we're not thinking about, that you think the DAO could use, then this would go here under this form. So I'm really excited that the bounty board has kind of been put together, and I'm hoping people really find this useful. So I'll be able to move these cards around too as they go from complete to whatever. I can move them around, and I'll be managing this fully for now, but eventually this will be kind of more abstracted away as we move to something like D-Work, for example, that actually does handle a lot of this, somewhat automated. So I'm really excited. I hope a lot of people find this useful. But with that being said, if you guys have any feedback for me on how I can make this better, I'm definitely open to feedback. I'm just trying to make it somewhat simple and give us an easy place to start. Yeah. You guys have anything to add regarding, any of this stuff? Anything you see that could be done better? You guys like it? Just reading the comments right now. GM Dan. So you're back.
Hey, GM guys.
Hope your Reddit presentation went well.
I mean, so much to fit in an hour, but I think I covered most of it. I'm a fast talker. Did mention fake gotchis, mentioned the gotchi verse, mentioned the DAO, mentioned all sorts of things. So thoroughly gotchi pilled the audience.
Oh man, I should have passed over my fake gotchi interview I did with Jesse. That would have been a good plug. I'll plug it again here anyway if you guys want to listen to it. I did a Fake Gotchi interview with Jesse, and we run through like everything from the beginnings of Aavegotchi to where we're at today, and it was a really good interview. But yeah, I'm glad your call went really well.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get some of the. I was trying to finagle to get some Reddit artists to maybe come over and make some fake gotchis. That could be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've been trying to talk to some artists that are like, they're well-known artists, and they've actually shown interest in Fake Gotchi, which got me pretty excited. Okay. Yes, Dr. Wagme, thank you for sharing. Appreciate your insights as always. I think we're pretty much almost wrapped up here. I was just showing off the bounty board feature. I feel like we should maybe pin that somewhere, or have this link for the Notion available somewhere for people to access, because this will be where you can check up on bounties, see what's available. So I'll plug the link one more time if y'all want to bookmark it, or have it somewhere where you have it handy. So there's the DAO project hub. And this is the episode. Okay. I think we've covered most of our items from the meeting today. Let me just go over this one more time, make sure we didn't miss anything. But I think next week we'll be getting into the Dan, we just left the channeling discussion off the table for today. Just we thought.
Mm-hmm.
I did kind of run it by everybody, so at least we have some friends reviewing it. But we didn't get too deep into the weeds with the channeling today. I feel like it'll be a really good discussion to have next week when we can get into the alternative economic plan.
Mm-hmm.
I
guess my main question would be from Mark, because he's got his proposal open. Maybe I should just chat with him offline and see what if my proposal meets what he's trying to do. Maybe we don't, because I don't think we'd need both of them. So I don't know. Maybe I'll chat with him and see what his thoughts are on it.
Yeah, and once we have clarity, I think we can get a nice, healthy discussion around it, and not cause any confusion or anything. One last thing I wanted to just mention here: Hardcore has actually taken a bounty to assemble questions for the mission and vision statement. So compiling some really good questions to ask, and we'll be running by the final copy here in the forum. I think that's the best place to do it. If nobody has any objections, or if anybody has anything to add, really, we can add that in as well. But we'll be compiling like a survey for people to fill out over this week, and maybe even next week. And then we would like to look at the feedback and maybe create the first draft for our mission and vision for the DAO, and then we can look at that at one of the Sunday meetings here in the next week or two. So if you have any questions you'd like to add, anything you'd like to suggest, either drop them in the DAO forum for mission and vision, or actually contact Hardcore directly and just DM him what you think could be added to that, and then we'll have a final survey for y'all to fill out. Yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else really to add. The Respec Potion working group bounty is out, so I think it was Marvin P or Tommy Gotchi who had created the initial technical document. But if anybody would like to go out there and contact some people they would think would be relevant and create a working group and possibly a funding proposal, we can get together over the next week. We can have a meeting and maybe talk about getting you funding for developing the Respec Potion. That's all I got. Do anybody else up here have anything else to add? Either things for next week or things to watch out for over this week?
Did we talk at all about the upcoming, the discussion about the DAO statement of purpose?
That's like the mission and vision?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So the mission and vision statement, we've decided to create a questionnaire first and get people to fill that out and aggregate all that data, and then create the final draft of both of those to present to the DAO. And then at that point, if there's no objections, then we can. I just don't want to make. I want to make sure we don't leave any like opinions out or anybody behind that wanted to contribute. But we're
Is
getting.
there like a working group for that or a thread somewhere?
Yeah, so there is actually a thread that I've started in the DAO forum, and Hardcore has taken on the initiative of actually aggregating all the questions and creating a survey. So if you do have anything to add, anything to discuss, the forum is open. The forum post is open in the DAO, or not in the DAO, in the Discord.
Oh, it's in the Discord forum.
Yeah, the Discord forum. Yeah. Yeah. So definitely check that out. I think in the next 2 weeks, hopefully we can have a like final draft for both of those things and have that up in the on the Notion as a start of the like the DAO documents. Yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, I don't think I have anything else to add for the meeting today. I'm, appreciate all 43 people coming out to Sunday here and discussing some really great topics. We really got into the Forge today. That was the big part of our discussion today was the update from the Forge team, and the light paper. So I'll be getting into the light paper. I'll drop this link one more time for those of you who want to dig into this.
I saw Dr. Wagme. I mean, I've got 30 minutes. If anyone wants to talk, I mean, if we want to end the official meeting and keep going, I'm cool with that. Up to you guys, but I'm free to discuss the proposal and just the various proposals that are coming out related to channeling, even though it's not on the board, but we can finish up the official meeting.
Okay, no, I'm cool with that. It is actually on the board. I know Hardcore had posted. You're talking about the channeling discussion, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's on the board actually. I kind of briefly touched on it today. I didn't want to get too deep into the weeds without having you here also to provide some of your insights. If you're down, like we can get into it right now. I'm down.
Yeah, sure.
Again, I'll just read this little statement here that I believe was from the original proposal. There's been a lot of debate in the DAO this week around Alchemica inflation. It's clear that our economy cannot handle the amount of tokens being currently issued. Therefore, we've come up with a proposal to increase spillover rate in lower level altars to help reduce the amount of Alchemica being issued and to encourage friends to upgrade their altars. We believe this will stabilize the economy until more Alchemica sinks are introduced in the eagerly anticipated combat release. The following chart shows daily FUD inflation rate caused by channeling, broken down by the current inflation levels and spillover rates, our new proposed spillover rates, and the reduction in inflation this will cause. That was the first, I think that's from the original proposal. Now, you have put up a proposal for our alternative economic plan. And so we can start wherever, whatever your initial thoughts are on the whole thing, or if you want to get right into your alternate proposal. Either way works.
Yeah, sure. So obviously we monitor the sources and sinks of the Gotchiverse and have been working to set up more and more dashboards as the tech comes online, like the subgraphs. And I think it's pretty clear that if you look at the sources, the inflation that's coming out from alchemical channeling at this point, it's about 4 or 5, sometimes 6 times as much as that is coming out of farming, and those numbers together are significantly higher, like 8 to 10x higher than the amount of alchemica that's actually being spent in the economy. And that it varies depending on what sort of sinks are available. Like we recently just had the decoration, so that kind of provided a boost in that sense. But even including the harvesters, alchemical altar upgrades, bounce gate was recently added. It's pretty clear that the amount of alchemica that is coming out from channeling, especially, is just not balanced at all with the amount that's being spent in the economy. So one of the key principles of a game economy is that you want to try to balance your sources and sinks as much as you can. And the tricky part of a Web3 game is that we're not talking about Warcraft, World of Warcraft, where you have like gold and you can just devalue it to the end of the world because it's unlimited. We do want to try as hard as we can to have those sources and sinks balanced. And the tricky part is that there's NFT assets and investments that are being made into these assets and there's various stakeholders and opinions about that mechanic. So one of my core theses is, as a game developer in the Web3 space, we do not want to unilaterally make decisions on this kind of stuff. Like that, we saw what happened with Axie and how Sky Mavis treated their ecosystem and their economy and their player base, and they just essentially would make these unilateral decisions on this kind of stuff, and people would react to it. There was all sorts of chaos with that. So one of the core tenets going into Aavegotchi and the Gotchiverse is that we want to work with the DAO, and we want all the opinions to be represented and try to come up with the best solution that works for the most people and achieves the goal in the best way, while also leaving the fewest number of players frustrated or rage quitting from the ecosystem because of the decision. So that's where we're coming from. And it's a process. It's not something you can spitball on for a week and then come up with a decision and make a SIG prop on it. So that's why I'm a little bit annoyed at Mark and Phantasma. I understand you guys want to have movement on this, but it's not something that the DAO needs to take this responsibility serious and think of all the different ideas and brainstorm together to try and find the solutions that are optimal for everyone. Like if we start doing these kind of piecemeal SIG props that address one small facet of it but don't address anything else, it's just going to lead to a lot of people just feeling ignored by the DAO and not feeling included in the process. So this proposal, obviously, I've been thinking about it for a while, and I just felt it was a good time since there is a lot of discussion happening on it, and we do have these other proposals coming out. I figured it was a good time. We might as well address the elephant in the room, which is that channeling is leading to a lot of alchemica, which is making our sources and sinks quite imbalanced at this point. What we were hoping was that by this point, farming as a sector, as an industry, would be more developed, and there would be more interest in the farming, which would lead to more sinks in the early game, where we still are. But because I think that's what has happened is because alchemical channeling has really just dominated the majority of the supply coming on, that it's kind of depressed the farming sector, and people don't really feel like it's worth it to invest in the farming equipment, which accounts for the majority of the sinks that we had kind of planned in this early phase of the Gotchiverse. And so what we're trying to do here is basically temporarily disable channeling and allow farming some breathing room to catch up. And so that's pretty much what the first part of our proposal here does. And then part 2, part 3, and part 4 are really just trying to think through the second order effects of what part 1 is doing, and trying to basically give out an olive branch to all the various shareholders, stakeholder holders of those various asset classes.
I think I just looking at Dr. Wegme's initial comment kind of ties in with this, saying that he'd love to hear thoughts on ultimately who is there one party responsible for it seems like it's a dual party thing, but who is ultimately responsible for Gotchiverse economics. He says it's muddy from a protocol versus Gotchiverse. What is best for one may not always be best for the other. In your opinion, how are you thinking of this? How Gotchiverse economics and how the DAO and Pixelcraft are like where do
Well,
they play?
I mean, I kind of just said
Yeah.
it. My opinion is that once a mechanic has been established by us or the DAO, we did do the Gotchiverse Bible and went through a lot of these mechanics. Once it's been essentially voted in or voted in by default by not having to vote against it, it essentially becomes part of the way I view it is that the Gotchiverse is essentially part of it's an extension of the Aavegotchi protocol, and the tokenomics decisions that are made need to be made by the community as a whole to prevent one party unilaterally changing things that are going to significantly affect people without their consent. And I think that's the crux of the issue, is that a lot of game companies will make these kind of decisions without your consent, and you wake up one day and you're told this is how it's going to be. You have no say. So like Aavegotchi is a Web3 game. The Gotchiverse is a Web3 game. It doesn't mean that it can't be changed forever. That's not the aspect of Web3 that we're emphasizing here, the immutability part of it. Because if we emphasize that forever, like this game is never gonna get a chance to iterate and develop. Like no one here is an absolute genius and can predict the future. We need to be able to be flexible as a DAO and respond to situations that are present and trust ourselves that we can make the hard decisions that sometimes need to be made. But we at Pixelcraft are not going to unilaterally make those decisions. We are going to propose things, and we are going to basically have people vote, or you guys are going to propose things and have people vote on changes. But we're not going to unilaterally come in and fix things unless there's like really, really small things like a bug that needs to be fixed. But once an economic paradigm is established, that paradigm is not going to be changed without the DAO voting on it.
Dan, just some feedback, Diddley here. For me, at least regarding your perspective, your proposal, I mean. I think kind of going along with kind of like the principles you were just talking about with kind of asset owners it's important that kind of asset owners' voices is heard kind of in these sorts of things, as well as what you were talking about with farming needing to basically be kind of a bigger sink at this point. From that perspective, I feel like Mark's proposal is actually better because from what I'm seeing in this one, basically we would be completely taking away, for all intents and purposes, if you're trying to split it, I think split it kind of conceptually between asset owners and landowners. Gotcha owners and landowners. We would be taking away almost entirely the rewards from the Gotcha owners, which are kind of like the core of the whole protocol, and giving a lot of the whatever's left to either landowners or I think more so scholars, like renters. So it's almost like just hurting the Gotcha owners a lot more, whereas Mark's proposal was to incentivize in a large way additional upgrades of altars to be able to. I agree that there's more work that needs to be done there to further incentivize kind of building out the farming infrastructure. I mean, on parcels. But yeah, this is just the kind of concern I see with your proposal here.
Mm-hmm. I think Mark's proposal, or I guess JG1 and Mark Phantasma, it just seemed like it's not really going to have much of an effect. It's really just feel like we're playing with very small amounts of change here. Like if you look at we're basically just adjusting spillover rate. Like I would say we looked at the model a little bit, and Let's Go Bankless we were modeling out. It's going to have maybe at best like a marginal effect on the sources, and it's just going to generate animosity in the community. So not only are we not really, in my opinion, we're not really actually addressing the issue, we're creating more tension with the community with that proposal.
Good morning, guys. Can everyone hear me?
Hey.
GM.
GM. So, I mean, on one end, I wanted to start off. I've apologized several times about the timing on this proposal, even though I didn't submit it myself. But I do think it's unfortunate that the whole merits of it, just keep getting boiled down to that. If you listen to Dan's critique, it generates animosity and it was placed too soon. Those are the two main critiques. So I think that if we had posted it later, after Dan's proposal, it would have been interpreted completely different. So I wanted to apologize by another channel this time, and actually delve into how it happened, because I mean, from where I'm standing, it's pretty ridiculous to get all this vitriol because what was essentially a miscommunication. So I'll get into the background of all this. Mark and I aren't, besties or roommates or anything like that. Actually, for a good amount of time now, he's been drumming up this topic that is just so messed up that when you look at the numbers of what gotchis get versus what farming gets. And ironically, I've been one of the leading voices against his comments all throughout, and this isn't recent and this isn't new. What happened was, at a moment, I was actually frustrated at Mark, and I said, you know what? Let me just. I don't think it's healthy to just stand your ground and say you're not gonna nerf my gotchis and that's it. And so I said, you know what? Let me force myself to take a step back, pretend I'm Mark. I've engaged in the farming and I have a lot more farming. Whatever. I just try to look at it from a different perspective. So then I pulled up, the Excel I shared with everybody initially, that I use myself as a, auto updating Excel that feeds me the prices. I mean, it takes the alchemical prices of CoinGecko, so I can easily see right there on my Excel what is the value of channeling a 500 kinship gotchi or 1,000 kinship gotchi, et cetera, et cetera. So then it started pointing, like screaming more and more at me that especially as somebody with background in finance, that oh my God, like the risk reward ratio is just so off on a level 1 altar with a floor gotchi, that then my perception started to change a little bit. And then in the whole debate, I actually changed my tune a little bit, and I said, Mark, I'm starting to see this or that. Maybe we could adjust the levels 1 through 3. That led to a DMs between me and him where he said, I really appreciate it. You don't know how frustrating it is to have nobody at least try to look at what I'm saying. But on my end, I had also seen that Coder Dan and Mark were already at a certain stage of discussions regarding what's come out today in Dan's proposal. So for me, it felt like wow, I maintain that's too heavy-handed, too quick. It affects too many people's investments and plans for better or worse. We don't have all that much engagement, and what we do have, it would be a heavy-handed switch. So I started developing basically Mark said, I will go ahead and instead of submitting my thing, I'll submit your idea if you at least can make some data to prove to me that your idea is probably better than mine. So then I did, and then I sent him a DM saying, let's be clear. I don't want to handle this prop. I don't want to handle this SIG prop. You handle all that, but I'll do my part in creating a thread and exposing the data. He interpreted that as go ahead and submit the prop, and that's really all that happened. He went and submit the prop, and I see it go live, and I'm like, oh my fucking God. But I just wanted to express that because there's just been continuous criticism of how this prop went live, and that's that's the little stupid backstory to how that happened. With all that said, I do believe. I mean, the adjustment I'm making, Dan has seen it generate a lot of vitriol, but I would counter that a lot of people didn't know of all this background. They see my prop, I mean Mark's prop with my numbers, and they figure there's something at at hand here that doesn't smell right, and they've been pissed off. So I'm nobody's more regretful that the prop went before Dan's post than myself, because instead of people seeing that I came up with these numbers as a means to rescue the value propositions for all gotchis, and for better or worse what people have been building with channeling and buying more gotchis, and like so many people pointed out, doing channeling 24 gotchis has been part of their investment thesis into a level 9 parcel. So there's so much to consider that the numbers I propose are mild, but I think they just might be enough if people can run their own numbers and say, hey, I'm actually getting a more risk reward by going level 9 now versus what the math just clearly tells you all along. Dude, just buy floor gotchi, set up level 1 altars, you're getting the max extraction at the safest thing. If there's a nuclear bomb goes off tomorrow, you're gonna sell those floor gotchis in that level 1 parcel so much easier than your level 9, and that's where I see our current issue. And I think we don't need to go and fully cancel channeling now. We just need to get the 90% of whales that are still extracting hundreds of parcels at low level to. We need to tell them, hey, you're gonna get a better yield. You're gonna have more fun upgrading to level 9. That's it. That's it. That's at least where I've been coming from. And thanks everybody for listening to the rant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that is worth bringing up, which is why I originally, when Mark was saying, there were people saying, I forget who it was, mentioned it initially, and then someone said, "No, it's you shouldn't be bringing this up. No one's going to want to discuss it. It's no one wants to touch the yield." I think as a DAO, there should never be any topics that are taboo for us to discuss, because if that happens, then we get ossified and nothing will ever change. And again, our core principle of the Gotchiverse is that we can't be immutable. We're not going to get everything right on the first try. We have to iterate. As any good startup or economy does, you have to try things. The reason, I kind of outlined why I don't think that that Mark's proposal is going to work is because, yes, people will upgrade their altars, but once they upgrade their altars, you're just going to be back to pretty much the same amount of channeling coming online, and they're really, the sinks will not be very long lasting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that's been assuming that farming is an effective temporary sink while like PvP sinks and everything comes, right? But you have to also think of the larger ramifications, because if you swing so hard now, right, you're killing off the UBI, then when PvP sinks, the only way to farm that Alchemica that you need to play the PvP game is gonna come for farmers. How are people gonna feel about that? Like, oh, I can only generate that Alchemica now, and so they did a nerf a few months back that is now having ramifications, and oh god, I hate this. There's so many ramifications when you swing so strongly one way or another. That's why I just wouldn't go so aggressive with such a change, and somewhere in between.
But that's why we want to keep channeling, just have it once a week. And we're actually increasing. It's not just 2 hours; it's the whole day, and you get it can be once a day, whether it's a Saturday or Sunday, or that is up for debate about exactly when it should be. But I think there's still an avenue to get the Gotcha UBI. And
I mean, in theory, if you do it once a week, you could also change the base a little bit so that, okay, it's happening once a week, but it's as if it was happening 3 days quantity-wise. Have you contemplated that?
You mean like 3 days with 8 hours each or something?
You switch it to once a week, because that just makes sense. But quantity-wise, if you change the base rate, let's say they're getting like 1.5x. You know what I mean? Just a a little bit extra. So that okay, it's happening once a week, but it's like, oh wow, what a nice chunk of channeling I'm getting today. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that as one of the options. We definitely have the base rate as a lever that we could think about tweaking as well. That was the initial discussion, was about the base rate, and I definitely think that's a lever that we should be open to working with. So if we wanted to do it for just 2 hours a week, but we wanted to jack up the base rate and get the same numbers, that could also be interesting.
I was gonna say something I was thinking about. Someone had mentioned event based, whether it's once a week. But what about changing the variance across, different districts and having it so that it'll be a little more gamified in a way where you have, and I'm not sure if this can be implemented or not, but having some sort of a randomization within a certain variance, and it could be adjusted for specific districts across, it would change. And so maybe X district, the variance for the Alchemica channeling for this week is a little bit higher. So you have a higher chance of getting a larger amount on your channeling for that altar level. And then that would kind of change from week to week, but then we would actually be able to see across many different weeks, the most active districts, who's channeling the most. There'd probably be ways to gamify that, right? If we were to randomize that base amount a little bit more and have that sort of like that degen instinct that you want to hit the channeling for tonight, because there's a good chance that you might get a little bit of a 2x or 3x or something on what you would have normally got, so might get more competition. I don't know. I've been thinking of different ways we could definitely mess with that base amount, because I think that could really get interesting, and gamifying the channeling. We have something they talked about in Axie Infinity when they were, I was listening to some of their game design stuff, is to have in their Lunatia or whatever, their gotcha, in their metaverse, they have like phases of the moon, and the different phases of the moon would dictate, how much of the resource you're able to get. And so they had this mechanic that would actually change how much you would get outside of, the level of your installation or all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways we can play with it. Really, my goal is at this point we want to try and tighten the gap between how much is coming online every day and how much is being spent in the Gotchiverse.
But then that's like,
I
I
mean,
mean, how much is being spent in the Gotchiverse is directly a result of the incentives there are of spending in the Gotchiverse. So just like kind of like for what Phantasm said, just kind of swinging this huge axe and making this huge change, just to kind of like, it's like a massive nerf that just tries to get sync or sources in line with the sinks, as opposed to trying to get the sinks in line with the sources, which would be far more
it's doing
easier
both.
to digest.
The attempt is to do both, because on
How would it
the
do that?
sync side, on the sync side, people are not going to be as confident with the farming sector investing and building their machinery if they know that there's always large amounts of Alchemica coming on the UBI side. And so we're trying to balance it more on that side. And then, like I've said, I didn't put this in the proposal. I might go back and edit it, but I do think there's definitely it's a good time to deploy a little bit of Ghost in terms of supporting the farming and kind of kickstarting it, stimulating that economy a little bit more.
But I feel like we need to. That's like a principle that we should try to avoid as much as possible. Specifically, using some sort of monetary incentive to incentivize farming. It's literally a Ponzi. Like that's the entire. That's all it is.
Governments do it all the time. This is
No, I know. I understand. No, I know. I know it happens, but it's still a Ponzi. Like especially in the case of like a project like this, it's not the reason why governments can do it and why it works is because of the scale and the complexity involved within a government and its currency and like all its financial ecosystem. That it takes like forever, basically like years or at least to kind of like feel negative effects of an injection of capital, like we're actually seeing now in macro. But here, where we don't have any of that complexity yet, it makes, at least in my opinion, makes much more sense to incentivize in other ways, like in gameplay activity or in like leaderboards or something of the sort, to actually incentivize some activity versus trying to cut things in the negative, because especially in this market, when people have very little incentive to actually spend on a project, especially one as as unproven, you could say, as this one, that has like more risk than maybe like just investing in like Ethereum or something. Um, it in my opinion makes it much more sense to try to incentivize in that regard versus trying to just do a hard nerf to line things up.
Like no one's really disagreeing, but you guys need to know that like making the game takes time. We have a whole fleet of devs working literally like round the clock around the world working on this game, and it's just not gonna be. It takes time to make these kind of things and to have gameplay. It's like if everyone says we want more syncs for gameplay, yeah, we're working on it, and it's literally the next thing in the dev roadmap.
But so then, what's the kind of idea behind like wanting to do this right now, just to support the Alchemica price from falling further?
I told you I don't care about the price, but I think as an economy, we should, if we have the farming sector where no one wants to invest in it right now, it's like totally out of sync with the alchemical channeling sector. They're just very imbalanced, and we have a huge imbalance of sources and sinks. My motivation is to try and bring that gap closer. And on the demand side, it's difficult to create demand out of nothing because the game is currently still being built.
We're still early. I mean, we're building a game totally different than you would build any other MMORPG. Frost Coriolis makes a really good point. This has never really been done this way, and I think if this was a traditional Web 2 game, we wouldn't have even seen the trailer yet. So, like, the fact that we can all be a part of this and build it together is kind of cool. I think that's something that attracted me to this initially, and I think that's why a lot of us are here.
And Beard, I'm not saying that the DAO is not doing a good job coming up with solutions. I'm saying that we should never not be willing to discuss these kind of things. No one's putting the blame on the DAO for not making a good decision. Everywhere there's a lot of decisions being made all the time, every day, on our side and the DAO side. And when you make 1,000 decisions every week, some of them are not going to be great decisions. They need to be updated. But if we view this as a completely immutable protocol game, then we're not a yield farming protocol. We're a game. Games need to be iterated on. If the DAO's view is that games shouldn't be iterated on, then I don't even know why we have a DAO. We just might as well deploy it and then forget about it.
I don't think anyone's saying that. I think that I think the biggest criticism, at least from what I'm seeing in the chat and personally as well, is that it just seems to me that it won't achieve what you're trying to achieve there with regards to the incentivizing the farming. Like it will make a massive nerf, and it won't incentivize farming, like in my opinion. And that's what it seems like Yannick is saying, and like other people who have large investments here.
Yeah, but how does so? I mean, if we're gonna do something, then we should do something that's actually going to make a difference. In my opinion, the current proposal by Mark and Phantasma is not going to do anything. We're going to be exactly where we are in 2 months. Like there's no significant change will come from that. So, and it's just going to breed animosity with people.
Yeah,
So
I
I'd
think
rather make a big change that actually tries to address it more significantly from the source than just like bump the altar a little bit.
I'm gonna get
just
Yannick up here.
Phantasma's point.
Sure.
We got
Yeah,
some
just a
peeps.
just a Phantasma's point. It was kind of like the main concept behind the proposal itself was just to kind of basically buy some time. So, I mean, that was kind of like it to have some minor effect, but for like a few months here and there, just to give you guys more time to build out some more gameplay aspects.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, at least from my point of view, the idea was that I was perceiving the coming change because Pixelcraft felt that we have an oversupply of Alchemica because people weren't building. But hearing Dan, the main dev, saying that there is not effective if we get people to build, it just sounds like he's acknowledging that there's kind of deeper issues in the tokenomics that building won't fix. I mean, am I right, Dan? Are you basically suggesting that if people engage in a lot of farming, it's still not going to fix a core tokenomics issue that you're trying to fix?
The issue that we're kind of reverting in this patch would be there's too much Alchemica being generated from the UBI at this point, which is, in my opinion, depressing the farming economy. People don't want to invest in a longer term yield of the farmer equipment because they know that there's going to be a ton of supply coming on from the UBI side that's just going to devalue their farming equipment. So that's,
I would like to find out
core issue here.
I would like to find out how many current farmers accounted for the Gotchi channeling in their numbers, because truthfully, at least I did. My spreadsheet with with my 1 level 9 is considering 24 high kinship Gotchis to it. So if most of the people that have engaged with farming so far are going to be affected by this, it's kind of like you're healing farming, but the people that have been willing to farm are getting a little bit hurt,
Just I feel like from a protocol perspective, it's so irresponsible of you guys to just come into this and say, well, the problem here is supply, right? The problem's not demand at all. The problem is clearly supply, and all we have to do is reduce emissions, and that'll fix everything. The problem is demand. The problem is that you've done literally nothing to boost farming since farming's been released, right? Everything since then has been focused on aesthetics and doing these aesthetic competitions and the fake gotchis. All the focus has been on that, and there's literally been nothing done to boost the farming. You guys are sitting on millions of dollars worth of gameplay rewards that came from people who bought land over a year ago, and basically nothing's been done with it at that point. And you guys are going to come in here and say, oh, the problem is that there's too much supply being given to people who invested in this, Gotchi Bible that was presented by you guys. UBI and channeling was your idea. And now you're going to come in and say, well, the problem is clearly this channeling, so we're just going to rug it from everybody. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what all these arguments are boiling down to, right? Supply is too high from channeling. We're not going to do anything to boost demand at this point. So, so we'll just wreck everybody's
that's
channeling.
why we are saying we want to do some stimmies for farming at this point.
Well, let's try that first. Let's see what effect that has.
Yeah, but if we try to do that now, there's so much supply coming on from the channeling that we're going against the grain at that point, trying to do that.
Yeah.
Yannick, any thoughts you had to add?
I was gonna say Yannick had something he wanted to say.
Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to say, times are difficult now, and we have these over exaggerations like nuclear wars, Alchemica change, and this is just one of those over exaggerations, because like everything is going perfectly. I don't know what is the problem. Like, sure, like market dynamics are a bit different than your release of features compared to release features from the Gotchiverse, but our dynamics are great. Like game is with each release, it's greater and greater, and it's more playable, and it's I'm on opposite. Yeah, my like general opinion about everything is going well, but regards this feature, this economical update, I think DAO should be very careful changing. Do not change dynamics so much, because I saw it with other projects. If you change economical dynamics too much without really good reason, it creates like it's unstable environment. It's hard to plan your strategy. Like if I want to build a game on Aavegotchi and invest long term, it's hard if dynamics is changing too much. So I'm on opposite of this economical proposal, because I don't see the benefit. Yeah, it's cutting Alchemica inflation, all right, but it's also slowing down economy too much. Like we don't have enough Alchemica. You're correct, then you're totally right that it is not profitable to invest in land right now. And but there are some lands which are actually becoming with good roles, right? Lands with good roles are actually profitable to build on. So, and I don't see any problem. I think only question I have is like, do you worry about burning rate? Like, is like what burning rate we are right now? Is it information public, or can you disclose this information?
Burn rate, you mean on Pixelcraft side?
Yes,
Or what,
yes.
what
How
burn
much?
rate?
How long we can build this game without changing anything?
I mean, if on the fiat side, obviously we did do the token swap with the DAO, so that helped a lot. If we were never to sell any Ghost, I think we'd probably be in trouble within a year or so. If we do try and sell some Ghosts to support the roadmap, then probably would be fine for a while. Like we're not really worried about the burn rate too much.
Yeah, this is very a little in 1 year in crypto. It's like 10 years in regular life.
Yeah.
Like, so I see no problem here. Just continue build. But yeah, I'm on opposite of this economical, because it's had no clear value. It just changes numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if we want to do absolutely nothing, I think that's also fine as a community. My proposal is if we're going to do something, we should do something and do it on a larger scale.
I have a proposal.
Not just these like small changes.
I have a proposal. So as a guild, we play few this kind of games, and I have a like library of knowledge from other RPGs and what working for other games. It seems like when you have like some big competition, like say me versus Birdit, like we have Gotcha World versus Orden GG. And yeah, we invest our capital and time into armies and guilds, and we create this lore, PvP lore, like competition. And when you have this competition, big competition, there are a lot of smaller guilds are joining. Also, they also want to be a part of big war. That's my sentiment. What is working for other like similar games, and what my proposal would be to actually, well, we have like PvP, some PvP mechanics coming next few months, or like let's do some guild stuff. Let's invest into guilds. That's what's work for other games, for similar games. Like people seems to be attracted to this kind of like, yeah, it's interesting, right? You can create your own guild. You can like have some glory. It based on real assets. It's very real. So why not, my proposal would be to invest into this, like create some some PvP tournament, maybe something set in this direction. And OrtonGG, of course, is willing to participate.
I mean, I'm not against that. I'm just, it takes a little bit of time. We're almost done with the base combat stuff that we've been working on, and we still need to implement traits in a way that is tested with the community together. So that's going to take some time, which is why we're trying to buy a significant amount of time.
Like, what does that mean? You guys have been saying, for a while now, oh, it's right around the corner, it's next on the roadmap. Like, what does that mean? Like, when is PvP gameplay going to be here? It's like 3 months, 6 months, a year?
I've said a couple times, but I'll say it publicly again. If we don't have any sort of PvP deployed this year, I will be surprised, because we're already working on it, and a lot of the groundwork has been laid for it. We're literally working on a promo trailer for it. I can leak that, but I can't give you guys like a set date on when it's going to come out, because we need to test it with the community as well, and make sure that you guys are happy with how the traits are implemented, because we don't want to go back and change them, because that would really screw things up. Like, that's going to be a once we've kind of confirmed that those traits are there, it will be even very significant change to try and patch them later on a macro scale. Like, there might be small tweaks with numbers, but it will be difficult to change later.
When you say this year, you mean by December 31st, 2022, you would be surprised if we didn't have PvP gameplay?
I will be surprised if we don't have, some form of PvP that is. So I can't promise that it's going to be on mainnet, but we'll have something that we can be demoing and testing and playing as a community. And if things go smoothly, it could be on mainnet. But I definitely think we'll have something playable for you guys within this year. But is it going to be on mainnet or not? Is there going to be real Alchemica involved in terms of being dropped in the Gotchiverse? Like, that's much harder to say. I'm
But
sure
it's
there'll
already
be
enough to-
times along, there'll be probably times along the path where we can have some experiences in the Gotchiverse like we had yesterday. That was really fun. We want to do more of those, and we definitely will do more of those. And the next step with that would be let's see what happens when we add in 1 or 2 traits like HP regen or movement.
I just brought Nine Kong on stage. Welcome, GM sir.
Howdy, Sam. Yeah, I just want to echo what Dan just mentioned. He's obviously he and Jesse both have their finger on the pulse of this community. I've largely been like heads down in my man cave creating assets and designs and things, but Dan's been very much a proponent of getting PvP groundwork laid a long time ago, and he and Let's Go Bankless worked really hard to build, like he said, a foundation for it, which will finally realize all these gotchi traits and wearables and give meaning to them in the game experience. So to his point, and also yours, Bearded, about when, by the end of the year, what he's saying makes sense to be able to release the community certainly more tests, but probably a more significant test that ties directly into PvP by the end of the year. That to me makes sense as an experienced game developer, as a target. And like he said, whether that's going to be real Alchemica or not, I don't know about that, but it will be clear to the community the progress that's being made on its development, which should assuage some concerns people have, because if some people feel, or a lot of people feel, that it's been mentioned that it's right around the corner. I do believe that he's right. It is by the end of the year. We're in a state now, by building the team that we've been building and laying the groundwork, that a lot of pieces will be coming together more quickly. And I think this month is perfect evidence of that. We had a huge art release, and then literally a week later, we had this Halloween release. And that the Halloween release was not planned, although the combat stuff is being worked on. But this was a big scramble for the team to try to release to the public something that was fun for the Halloween season, but also gave more of a taste, as Dan mentioned, of some of the combat to come. It's just a taste, but by the team being able to accomplish what it did with this art release, which is just huge, and being able to tack on this Halloween release, I think that should hopefully instill more confidence, both in believing that around the corner means around the corner, but also be able to feel a little bit more what this game experience is. And I think the community does. But I just wanted to offer my support, both as a member of this team, also supporting Dan, but also supporting the community, which is the whole point of all of this, to have people have fun and to have a DAO discussion like this. This is actually my first DAO discussion that I participated in, and I'm glad I joined because I think this is a very important topic. Anyway, so those are my 2 cents. Just wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, thanks. I think, I mean, yeah, it's just to emphasize, the development speed has increased. We've got the infra done. Back end, a lot of that back end stuff where we have like 30 servers running at the same time, it's pretty much all hooked up to the Kubernetes now and is auto scaling. So we're focusing a lot more on the feature work now. Like I said, if we're my perspective is, if we're going to tamper with emissions, then we should try and go to the root cause of the problem, or we just do nothing. I would I'm totally open to that if we're just gonna let it go as it goes. But if we want to start making changes to the tokenomics at this point as a DAO, we should just focus on something that's actually going to have deliverable results and not just like a small change. I mean,
So,
that's
Coder Dan, sorry, do you think then that we don't have a glaring issue where, and you can see this, people, I mean, we have a farming game, right? But going level 9 and all that, as currently is like a gimmick compared to just buying a Aavegotchi and channeling level 1 into eternity. You don't think that there's an imbalance there? Because my concern is that you say, well, like you seem to prefer going your way or doing nothing, and on my end that sounds like completely ignoring something that beyond, like I think my proposal actually is a fix of a game of a misdesign, because basically, remember, we adjusted a lot of numbers for harvesters, and that's basically had an unintended consequence in the altar paradigm. So I think that my suggestion has also been glazed over as, oh, we're just trying to uplift the market with a tiny measure, and I counter that it's a rather important fix that makes at least for people that are looking into numbers and stuff, you're really changing the value proposition from, I'm just gonna get more Aavegotchis, and I think, I can't prove this, but if you look at high BRS, and a lot of stuff just keeps coalescing to the floor, so then we're in a bear, and then everything just gets appraised around floor, and then people need quick liquidity when they're about to get liquidity in Aave, so then they sell at the newer floor, and I think we have a value trap there, and it's not about trying to manipulate Alchemica with a little tiny makeshift change. No, it's I think we have a error or issue in our numbers to be addressed and fixed in level 1 through 3. Because I mean, for instance, just on my case, right? I have over 200 gotchis. I only have one level 9 and 24 gotchis getting channeled there. Most of my gotchis are actually getting channeled level 3, and I'm suggesting to nerf myself in there. But I'm suggesting it because I personally rather get nerf now, still get some Alchemica, and have hopeful farming, like actually feeling an incremental result to actually engaging in the farming game versus saying, you know what, I want to farm more. Here you go. And I'll be honest, that's what I've been doing. I've been buying more floor gotchis because upgrading and farming parcels just doesn't make as much sense. So I think my proposal is not some desperate and weak attempt at addressing Alchemica. It's a fix on an issue we have with altar levels 1 through 3 mostly.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I like about Mark and Phantasma's proposal is that it actually encourages people to upgrade existing altars, whereas Dan's proposal just gets rid of channeling entirely and then incentivizes people to refund their altars and probably just dump that Alchemica. So, you know, if we want to try something for a few months, you know, why not try an incremental change that attempts to address both the supply and the demand side of things, instead of just saying, well, you know, let's just get rid of the whole thing.
It just seems like this proposal is also, you're going from 50% to 90% and then 45 to 80. Like that's a pretty significant penalty for people that have already built out those altars. Like if I were in their shoes, I wouldn't really be very happy with this proposal, because it's, you know, it's essentially forcing me to, if I want to continue earning what I was, I would have to upgrade my my altar. Whereas what I'm trying to do is say,
you're talking about the channeling. You're talking about the channeling.
The Mark and Phantasma proposal.
But like, I mean, anybody can use. I mean, I'm obviously a little biased here, but anybody can use the land in the vault if all they want to do is channel. Like if you're worried about just channeling your gotchi, there's tons of like level 5 altars that are not being used. And
you could also refund levels 1 through 3 of altars if since we're open to, you know.
So why are people? How does this proposal by Mark and Phantasma incentivize people to upgrade their altar if there's already plenty of altars out there for them to use?
The vault takes a big percentage, or rather a large percentage goes to.
Well, it sounds like it sounds like their research found that there were people who I guess are suboptimally channeling on level 1 altars, right?
Yeah, I mean, his data didn't show per gotchi, but it would be much. I mean, just looking at how much output is through levels 1 through 3, as well, or especially if you go up to 4, how I think it's already like near to 50% just going from level 1 through 4. Since you know that that's already reduced, you know that there's more gotchi count even there than the numbers suggest. So it's the change doesn't seem so much, but I mean, after this, I could DM Coderdan and show them my account, how I channel with level 3s, how I have low humbles with level 3. It makes no sense to farm them. I think that the change, it's about. I mean, also if you look at my post, right, it makes. I think it's no wonder that people aren't enthused about upgrading their altar, because at current it's like, okay, I'm gonna take this increased risk and I'm gonna upgrade the altar, and the payback is gonna be like 6 months into the future. By getting extra 8 cents a day, in the middle of this bear. That doesn't appeal to people. But if you look at the alternative numbers proposed, it's like you get a tangible effect in your channeling that you can literally see and feel immediately after you upgrade. And I think that's one huge thing that we've been missing. Giving people and another thing is, I posted it here. I think here in DAO meetings, so much earlier, I was having a back and forth with Hardcore of numbers that could be, what he was calling dogleg, to kind of be more lenient at the lower levels. but having more of a jump through levels like a speedway of 10% increases from level 4, 5, 6. So I think it's just about it's not trying to manipulate Alchemica in a certain way. It's about making upgrading worthwhile for channelers, because basically what the whole thesis is that once I'm incentivized to upgrade level 5, 6, and so forth, I immediately consider, oh my god, especially since we modified the harvesters, I immediately consider, oh my god, now I can just slap on some harvesters and reservoirs into this baby, since I've already invested into the altar, and that's pretty much what we have missing, because anybody looking at the numbers know that they're better off right now getting another floor gotchi, or or playing rentals that end up channeled in low levels. So it's just a huge value trap, and I mean, I guess what we could do is to try to get better data to show that's, I mean, the suggestion is not as superficial as it would seem. I think it's more of a slight nudge that is it can slowly snowball to the over time to the right change in attitudes from people looking possibly at upgrading, instead of looking for to buy another floor accessory and growing from there.
That seems to make sense to show some numbers, because guessing or anticipating without that data seems less wise than actually tracking projections.
Yeah, that's fair, and a huge criticism was that it posted too soon. We've agreed and apologized, and I think, for instance, I can discuss with Mark so that he can get the numbers to more clearly show just how much is getting channeled there at those levels. It would be fairly easy to show examples of current market data, how I mean, it's basically like if you just make an Excel, right, and you can't even calculate it, because it's like division by zero. When the level 1 doesn't cost 0, and it's channeling you 50 cents, and you're in this market, you're saying, hey, spend up to $1,300 to not even double that, from free, free 50 cents, or you get your free 50 cents every day, or spend $1,300 to get 80, 90 cents a day. Is making no sense, and I think it's no small issue.
But yeah, but that's why we're discussing taking away the free 50 cents every day.
Yeah,
because when you decide between a free 50 cents and delayed gratification, obviously most people are going to go for the free 50 cents at this point.
Yep, especially in this market.
Yeah, so if we want to think a little bit longer term, we as a community would have to make the hard decision to say we're not gonna offer that free 50 cents anymore to every member of the community.
That is exactly what you cannot do. But you cannot do that, because in this kind of game, each change is economical change, and as it designed right now, gotchis and glitter are kings. Like, until people are buying gotchis or glitter, until we find the floor on these assets, Alchemica will not go up. That's just the way it is designed, and you cannot change it, because it's like Bitcoin. You can change it, but you have to have really good reasons for it. And yeah, Phantasma, what you're saying, like, maybe it makes sense from like logic, but but if you change that, why not change again? Like, you always will have these arguments to improve something a little bit, but you cannot do this too often. Like, these changes must be really good thought, and when it's deployed, it deploys. Like, people are building on top of it. You cannot shift assets, because it just shifts assets from people, and it's not stable. Games are dying because of this.
I agree so much, and that's why I personally feel that a small tweak, while keeping the idea of channeling and farming, because it's what people were given, is much better than just looking at it like it's like on paper, right? Oh, on paper, it looks like I could just move people here and there. And we know that logical thinking doesn't necessarily always work. Hitler thought, oh, my troops should just go and conquer Russia, and it didn't happen that way. So it's the same way. I think it's too heavy to say, well, we have a clear issue with channeling, so just axe it, and people are not going to be farming. But when we do PvP, people are just going to PvP. Unfortunately, maybe that will work if it was just a game. But since many people are saying, since so much planning and investing goes into this, you can't just jump from one thing to the other any given day and change the paradigm completely, because people then get exhaustion and they end up saying, you know what, I don't care what the carrot is or the stick is, like Hef is writing. I'm losing enthusiasm because I can't keep up.
Yeah, and I agree as well that with the points that Yannick mostly making regarding, like, even if we completely remove any sort of kind of economic consideration from this, just us trying to build a protocol that can be built on top of. Besides a change this large, breeding investor disconfidence, more importantly, it removes any confidence from developers building on top of the protocol, who need to kind of build things with long-term considerations in mind.
Yeah, I think there's been some really great conversation here. I just wanted to point out where we are at time in the meeting. I didn't want to say anything because the conversation's been really good, and I think people like No Future, hopefully we can cut some of this up and get that out there into bite-sized pieces so people can listen into this. I think this is a really healthy discussion to have, and we should follow up on this discussion, based on everything we've discussed here today, next week, and again, have some more formalized thoughts around how we want to approach this. And I totally agree with Yannick's sentiment that we should be really thoughtful about this, given that it's these are major economic decisions.
Yeah.
So really appreciate everybody coming up here today on stage. Nobody was talking over each other. Everybody heard everyone's opinions, and also the engagement in the chat. So shout out to all you guys for still having a reasonable conversation around this.
Yeah, this is a great conversation, guys. I do have one question for Phantasma and Mark. Are you guys willing to, are you going to continue with this proposal? Because once it reaches quorum, if it passes, we will bump it to core prop. I do still think that it's quite rushed and needs more discussion on multiple angles. But if the community votes it in, we're gonna implement it to whatever good or ill that is.
I know as much that Mark reached out to me to say that he couldn't make it here today, and his take is that he even prefers your option. He at least I think he's very transparent. He's a Alchemica Maxi, and he likes your option the best. From my point of view, I like my alternative better. I would love seeing if you submit a SIG prop and they both meet quorum. I would love seeing an eventual core prop that then has our numbers. I do think we could talk more, present more data, adjust the numbers, as I was in the conversation with Hardcore. I just don't know on how we go with some flexibility from this SIG prop passing to the core prop versus being bound to, well, the SIG prop said these numbers, now you need a core prop for this, and then how do you have competing core props? I'm just a bit confused into how that works, but the answer is, yeah, I think Mark prefers your version. I would prefer people given the option of my soft approach, soft balancing approach, or your more heavy-handed approach in a single core prop. I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, I just think you guys should try to address that group of those in the bottom or the middle that are not very happy with how things are going. And I think the sentiment is that they feel like they might be forced to use like a Aavegotchi Vault parcel or something. Otherwise, the spillover will be significantly higher, or they'd be forced to upgrade and have to change their strategy that they had initially planned. Because I know there's people that initially planned. They said, I'm only going to get a level 4. I don't want to get a level 5. I'm happy where I am. And this proposal would essentially nerf that and force them to upgrade, which is feels like that's not going to really cause good vibes on their side. So I
Yeah.
have to get off here. It is way past time, but great discussion, and let's everyone just keep the discussions going. It's best if you keep them in the forum. That's where most of the discussion is, but I'm sure some of it will leak over into the DAO discussion as well.
I believe just
Dan?
to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Hefe, just one last point. I'm not an economic guy, so feel free to throw this out in the garbage, but would it make sense, or are we already doing something like this where we basically, if there's a proposal that's going to affect economics, to have a side-by-side comparison of, basically anticipating what the market's going to be based on current implementation versus the new, and kind of be able to analyze, at least on averages, what the impact might be. Anyways, just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, for instance, in this prop, I know that I made two tables, one showing what people currently get from channeling and what it would look like the other way, to illustrate how it's more of a bump at every step. And Mark included the data, what's happening at each altar level, and the effects it would have in emissions. The numbers for that one said 33%, and if I recall correctly, the numbers in Dan's proposal is a reduction in emissions from 50 to 60%. So it's stronger for sure.
Cool.
Cool, guys. All
All
right.
right.
Well, thanks everyone for coming out, and yeah, we'll have
It's a good
fun
one.
next week.
Yeah,
Likewise,
absolutely.
a week now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. And check out the two forum posts are there. Coder Dan with the alternative economic plan and the original post plug there as well. Those are in the Aavegotchi DAO Discord. So not the the Aavegotchi DAO forum, not the Discord. So there's that there. Check out the bounty board. I will be posting. I'll be talking to some other people, Dr. Wagme and some of the others, who may want to have bounties implemented, and I'll get those up in addition to what I have up there. So go check it out. If you're interested, submit the form. I'll get that, and we'll talk. But other than that, I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll link up again next week, friends. Friday.
Thanks, Hefe.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Peace, everyone.